Welcome to the Physician's Guide to Doctoring, a practical guide for practicing physicians. Dr. Bradley Block interviews experts in and out of medicine to find out everything we should have been learning while we were memorizing Krebs cycle. The ideas expressed on this podcast are those of the interviewer and interviewee and do not represent those of their respective employers. And now, here's Dr. Bradley Block.
And now a word from this week's sponsor, Laurel Road.
Taking out med school loans had me watching every penny. I took 2 buses to get to campus. During my residency, I walked 20 blocks. But since I opened a Laurel Road linked checking account when I refinanced my loans, I got a crazy low rate plus a cash bonus. And all that extra money helped me finally buy my own car.
Where are we going?
Anywhere we want.
Laurel Road for Doctors. Banking, insights, and benefits uniquely designed for doctors. See laurelroad.com/doctorchecking for full terms and conditions. Laurel Road is a brand of KeyBank N.A. member FDIC.
Ernesto Gluecksmann, thanks so much for being on the podcast. And thank you for helping me to get this podcast out there.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting me on the show. I'm pretty excited. I don't get to be on this side of the shows of clients that I work with that often. So I'm excited.
Well, here's the thing, like the whole idea behind my podcast is getting information to physicians that isn't necessarily covered in our education. And so, there are a lot of people with side gigs that want to get their name out there and main gigs that want to get their name out there and patients to referring physicians to. And so this is your wheelhouse. You are the expert in that. So, you're the perfect guest.
Oh, well, yes. Well, that's how you convinced me to come on the show and accept your invitation. So here I am. Yeah. Let's dive into it because it's funny. It's still like an evolving concept in my own mind too. So it's good to also just like get to express a little bit what we do for a wider audience, right? But in this case, it's for other physicians, right? This is a physician to physician show. Yeah. So, all right. What do you want to know?
So let's talk about my strategy first. Let's talk about what we're trying to do is we're trying to get my face and my voice in front of other physicians that might be interested in listening to the podcast. So how are we getting that out there? How are we growing my audience? What's the strategy and why did we decide on that strategy?
Yeah. So when you came to me, it was about 1.5 years now that we've been working together on this stuff, right? Yeah. You had a pretty awesome, successful audio only podcast. Which is funny because that's where I started my show. So I have a whole other show, Through the Noise podcast, covers companies that do renewable things. There's an interest. That's like a side gig show that I work on. But when you came through, and I had my show in an audio form for many years, and had converted into the visual form, the video version of it. Kind of a unique show, the physician to physician, but it's not the typical topics that you might hear, and more of a stiff panel of discussion of techniques or whatever, the typical things you might go to a conference. It's really you, Bradley, your conversations with physicians and other experts that you think other physicians should find out. That is like perfect material for me to work into shifting into the visual form and getting you into YouTube. Like I looked at everything you were doing everything right. The audience was growing on the audio only. The thing you weren't in at the time was video or YouTube in this case. And I was like, okay, that's the next level for you. And that's what I've been doing with all my clients. It's like finding the next level on where the trajectory of their projects, their shows, I call them all shows, but their podcasts or whatever they're doing with social media, and what's that next level to enter, right?
The mistake that I always make is thinking that everyone thinks like me, right? Like I listen to podcasts, but I don't really watch YouTube shows. And so why would anyone want to see me on YouTube talking to someone else? And apparently people do. And who knew, right? Like, because they don't necessarily need to consume this visually. It's just that they find it on YouTube and they will be doing the dishes or doing the laundry and they might
Mhm.
peer up at it every so often, but they get to listen while they're doing other things, right? And just using
Mhm.
the YouTube platform kind of as an audio medium, because it's not like I'm doing anything interesting out there, like for people to see. It's really it's an audio medium, and as you explained, the number of listeners, the number of people that download or on YouTube versus on podcasts, like 10x or more, something I was never gonna have access to all these people, and now I do.
Yeah, yeah. One of the facts that helps us understand this a little bit better is something a lot. Read a lot of research from Edison Research. They cover the podcast area, the podcast ecosystem. They've been covering it for a long time, and in that space, you can kind of see the plateau. About 30% of Americans are active podcast listeners, and by the way, I'm one of them. Like I consume a lot of podcasts when I go on my runs, when I go drive anywhere, it's always my favorite podcast, because I like listening to a conversation that's an engaging conversation while I'm doing something with my hands, or when I don't have to actually be locked in visually on something, right? So, but that means there's 70% of Americans are doing something else, right? Now, when you shift over to the video side of the world, that's when the numbers get crazy. It's something like 85% of Americans watch videos. Full stop. Most of them on YouTube. Okay. There might be a video that was shared that's like a link to a YouTube channel on a WhatsApp channel. They might have seen it on Twitter or in an email. You got to watch this, or just how it gets there. That's a whole other conversation. But the reality is, most people are consuming video content. And you can see this in the way the top social media platforms are all shifting towards video content to begin with. Twitter, LinkedIn, all of them, all of those platforms. 5, 6 years ago, LinkedIn would be a little bit more, blog posts. Twitter was all more about, tweets and maybe starting to add, visual memes or something. But the push to video is it's just enormous across everything. And so when you think about it in those terms, if you have a podcast and you have an audience, but you want to grow it. So the way YouTube just has a much easier time surfacing videos to target audiences. So when you listen to a podcast, to find a podcast that really interests you, it's kind of a challenge. You got to ask people, or maybe, but most of the time it's like you listen to one of your favorite podcasters interview someone that you suddenly go, oh, that's an interesting person, or they may reference another podcast, right? And in fact, the marketing dollars spent on marketing a podcast, like the best marketing dollars, is clearly just on any activity that can get you on somebody else's podcast, because that's really the way it works, right? In the audio only. I'm driving down the road, suddenly my Lex Friedman or somebody interviews an interesting scientist, and I go, oh, that guy's pretty cool, and he has a podcast too. Okay, I want to reach out to him. But on YouTube, it's all over the place where I can find the next video. Like there's 10 videos on a sidebar if I'm on the computer that can show me 10 different other videos. As soon as I'm done watching my video of whatever I'm watching, another one will be right there next to me. It'll give me even suggestions like, the next video you should watch. And if I even hit autoplay, it'll just go to another video, not another podcast or another video within the podcast. It could be, but it could be another video of another show entirely. So the ability to be discovered or to have your content connect with an audience is way easier by orders of magnitude on
And
YouTube.
it reminds me of, I think the term is carnizeration, something like
Ooh,
that, where like
good one. I
every
haven't heard of that one.
sea creatures, I'm mispronouncing it, but sea creatures are all turning into crabs. So like there's something
Mhm.
about like the crab being the most efficient creature, like clearly not, because there are more alpha predators out there, but like there are sea creatures who are becoming more crab-like. Like they didn't start out as crabs, and now they're becoming crabs. So
Right.
okay, so where am I going with that? Well, it's like TikTok found the formula, and the
No.
formula is the short attention span video. Like it's just a few seconds long, and that's it, and then it goes to the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And so now everyone is doing that. So Facebook is doing it, and Instagram is doing it, and Twitter, you can have videos on it, but they now put on tweets for people you don't follow at all. There's just suggested tweets. So like they're all becoming more like each other. They find something
Yeah.
that's grabbed your attention. It worked for this other platform. So now we're going to become more like, and so they all, instead of becoming as disparate as they were, like you said,
They start to
Twitter's for tweets,
resemble.
they all start to
Mhm.
resemble each other. And so you're like, why do they all resemble each other? Because it's these shorts. And so
Yeah.
that was another, not just get me on YouTube, but take the shorts and then use those. And we've put them on YouTube, and we put them on Instagram, and we've put them on. So we use those shorts for other promotion, because then it's other ways for people to find.
Yeah. Yeah, the TikTok's actually it's TikTok is what's keeping executives at Google and Facebook and LinkedIn up at night, because it's a really interesting platform in that they've cracked the code on how to keep that short video compelling and interesting as you simply just scroll up and down through it. And it's got its dark side, of course. But the one startling statistic was an inside presentation that got leaked from TikTok. They were presenting to some big media buyers out there. Something like the average user of TikTok, this is the average, consumes 4 hours of TikTok videos a day.
Oh, I want to throw up. Oh my
4
God.
hours a day. Yeah. And then hold on. If you think about so this is the dark side of this stuff, but what that means is if you're consuming, you're just scrolling, it's the minimal effort to get to the next interesting little tidbit. And every one of those videos has this sort of like problem solution, problem solution, problem solution. Like you're getting rewarded for like what this is. How do you for me, it's a lot of like deck. I'm working on my deck in my backyard. And so there's a lot of like a lot of guys showing me how to like, clean the deck, scrape the deck, like all these. And it's just a constant intriguing, at least to me, maybe nobody else, but process that one way or the other, your system is releasing this sort of dopamine, the serotonin. You probably know more about this stuff than I do, Bradley, but it's releasing this.
Just what I learned from other podcasts, really.
Right. And then when you get to the end of that, like overconsumption of like this super tasty information, what might lead you to do after that is retail buying consumption, right? And so that's what TikTok sells to these guys. Like we can get massively addicted audiences looking at your products and services, and they'll get to a point where they'll just be like, well, you know what? I do kind of want that new whatever ad that I just got presented.
That knife that they used in that video to cut up all that fruit so quickly. You know what? I can use that knife. Yeah,
I kind of need some because I'm already depressed from scrolling for 4 hours of stuff, right? Like right. So that is. So yeah, this is a little inside baseball, I think, for perhaps for your physicians that are listening to the show. But it is a crazy battle of these big platforms to connect, content makers, advertisers with really interested audiences, really compelled by all that. And YouTube, if you make content that's compelling, that it's engaging, that people click that kind of watch more than the first 30 seconds, YouTube's organic algorithms are going to surface that up into audiences you would have never even thought you could have reached by doing it. But it's not an easy process. There's a bunch of things that goes into that, right? As we've been discovering over time, right? One of the things that's interesting to me is using some of the YouTube's ad algorithms to actually pay to sort of jump the line instead of waiting for Google's own organic engine, AI engine, to sort of surface the videos, you can actually do the work ahead of it. You pay a little bit of money and you boost your video into into the in-feed, sort of like the top 10, like as I mentioned, like there'd be like 10 slots of next videos to watch. I can slot you in there at the top. It says ad, it's an ad, but it's your video and it's promoting that. And we can target, there's no button in the ad group that says, oh, just target this to physicians. I wish there was, because it'd be easy, but pretty close. You can target people with advanced degrees that work in healthcare.
Good enough. Yeah.
Close enough, right? The next level to that, which I haven't even brought up to you, Bradley, before, but the next level is really finding other shows that have good discussions, the other shows that target physicians, that's interesting to physicians. It's interesting to other physicians to watch. And if they've done all the work of generating the audience, building an audience around that, we can do something called placements, which is basically, okay, everybody that watches this other YouTube channel that's directed to physicians, you guys are targeting the same group, I can place your video next to that as a suggested next video. Right?
Sounds like a baller move.
Let's
do it.
There's not, it's amazing to me, because it's like, it's 10 cents, 15 cents for 1,000 people to look at it and decide whether they want to watch it or not.
And I think when you've got some company like Coca-Cola or BMW that has like a specific audience, or not even a specific audience, it's clearly less specific than ours. They want to reach that, like, 10 cents for 1,000 isn't, I think, the same return on investment as us 10 cents for 1,000, because our market is so specific and also so high value, which is why advertising on physician specific shows is more of a premium than, like,
absolutely,
ones with a general audience. So we're actually, I feel like, getting at a discount because we're able to target an audience that should cost us more, and just doesn't, because it doesn't pay for them to splice everything down so finely. And well, this is going to cost you $1 per 1,000, and this person, it's going to cost them $5. It's just not worth their time to do it. But for us, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, the riches are in the niches is one of those platitudes that floats out there. The more niche you can make a particular YouTube channel or podcast, then the more targeted you can make it, then you're going to effectively turn off some audiences that it's not really for them, but you're going to turn on these other physicians that are interested in the world that you're in. I mean, you're the guide for busy physicians to listen in, to find out interesting discussions and innovation that's beyond just the what you guys do to go to school with. It's like what happens after school, right?
Yeah.
After all that. And for an outside advertiser, I mean, sure, they could go through the rigmarole of creating a podcast and spending some ads, trying to find the right audience on YouTube, trying to get all that. They could do that, or they just support the show and connect with you and know that your integrity and the way you interview with everybody, that's what they're buying into, right? So from an outside perspective, and then the money you might get from a sponsor gets to be put back into improving the production and improving the reach. So you try to find those folks that really care about the stuff you guys are talking about. That's the way it works.
And then I can retire. That's the goal.
From what? From this? From the show?
No. From the
show's for life.
Yeah, the show's for life. No, from seeing patients, and then I'll just be able to talk and give advice to people that are still seeing patients about how they. No, that's not what I'm going to do. Because actually, there are people out there that do that. They coach other physicians about how to get through burnout, but what happened to them is they stopped seeing patients. So they're yeah.
So how can they speak authoritatively?
Strange for not. Yeah, it's if they're not the ones seeing, if they're not in the trenches like we are anymore, slogging through 30 patients a day. So
30 patients? Wow.
28. 28.
20.
My cap right now is 28, although I might get an add-on and make it to 29. But 30, yeah. Used to
20.
be my max was like 34 in a day, but not
Wow.
anymore. Not anymore. So okay. But
Okay.
okay. So before I found you, I had spoken to a bunch of other companies that were gonna try and help me, you know, promote the podcast and get it out there. And they all worked the same way. They said, you're going to tweet out your episodes and Instagram post your episodes, and then you're going to put it in Hootsuite or something like that. And then we're going to just put it out on social media. So basically using, instead of paying for ads, or I guess it's kind of using the algorithm, we're just going to continually post the same post, you know, every day for a week, and then once a week for a month, and then once a month for a year. Then every week you'll just saturate the airwaves with your same posts over and over. And that's what everybody was doing. You know, they just
Yeah.
pre-program it. So your same
Yeah.
posts come up over and over, and hopefully you'll find some people that resonates with that wouldn't do it. And actually I've had an experience or two where we'll tweet out an episode, and then the following morning I'll just retweet it. Just maybe someone who didn't see it the first time will see it the second time, and maybe I get another like or two. It really hasn't led to much traction. I guess I kind of answered my own question, but decide on why do we decide against that strategy?
Well, because it doesn't work. At the fun, several aspects of that. You're trying to get somebody to listen to a podcast by putting out an ad or putting a post, let's say a tweet on Twitter. Now you're asking people to click on the tweet and then open the tweet, and then maybe you click to a landing page, right, with the actual episode in there, and maybe they listen to a little bit of it, but you're already asking for a couple of steps removed, whether it's their phone, and then it's going to go to a browser. Maybe on the phone, it's a little bit tighter. You're asking, it's just, there's a couple of steps there. And so while you can still get people to look at the tweet, and you can certainly pay to boost the tweet the same way you can pay to boost a video on YouTube. Why are we going through those? Why are we asking people to go through those extra, sort of like that extra 2 steps, really, when just get on that platform with YouTube, do a little testing, targeted, surfacing these videos, and it's going to go right, like they're going to go see that thumbnail and go, yeah, let me click on that. Well, let's do it right now, because this is what I'm watching. I'm on YouTube. I'm watching YouTube videos. I'm going to do it now, right? That's the thing. That's why also the marketing dollars on podcasts, like if you had a podcast, audio only podcast, and you wanted to buy, or you could pay other podcasters, hey, can I give you, $100 or a couple hundred, whatever it is, to have just a little ad that runs just before your show starts. It just says, hey, here's another show, blah, blah, blah. But you're asking for people who are jogging with their headphones to listen to that ad and then type in how to search. The connection's not really, it's not immediate.
Yeah.
And in this world of instant gratification, in the world of TikToks, we're just scrolling and getting what you want. You got to be in that. That's the main difference. And then aside from all of this, I ran a ton of tests that you didn't have to do, Bradley. We did advertising on LinkedIn. We did it on Twitter. We did it on Facebook. We did a ton of stuff. But the most effective to actually consume and boost my own podcast for my own show has been just getting on YouTube and being smart about where you surface the video. And next thing you know, that's the discovering engine. And then the podcast is for the fan base when they want to just listen to it on audio only, or when they want to say, hey, Google, play such and such show. It's there. It's ready to go. Right. So like I look at platforms like Twitter and I wonder, all the brouhaha with Elon Musk buying it and all the stuff that's associated with it. Part of it, I have to wonder that part of it as a platform, that they've kind of lost the direction because the world's moved into this world of video.
They got comfortable.
Maybe,
they got comfortable.
Who knows?
They were huge. Yeah.
They were huge. I was an avid Twitter user. Like I was when that thing first came out, I thought it was amazing. I thought it was like, here's an opportunity to actually listen in on conversations or tweets of other, kind of get the general gist of other. It was very useful for the work that I was doing in the past. But somewhere along the way, it started getting noisier and noisier and harder to follow threads, harder to follow what's going on. And why is everybody angry, by the way?
Yeah.
Why is everyone so upset? It's like it's lost that direction and
Yeah. It
something's up with
fuels
it.
my anxiety. I end up because everything that I follow ends up being either about COVID gloom and doom or climate change gloom and doom, both of which are true, but like it doesn't benefit me, and I can't help the cause. If that's all it's doing is keeping me up at night right before bed, and so it just it makes me not want to. It still sucks me in, but
It-
makes me not want to do it. It really it's negative reinforcement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Whereas
almost
you're
for my
describing
show,
the
we just
positive.
put up a couple of things here and there just because somebody might come across my Twitter account and I don't, just want them to think, oh, well, there's still somebody here, but I'm not really engaging anymore in it. And it's just every once in a while, just sort of the article I just happened to read that I thought is relevant. I'll just send that out, but I'm not expecting it. Oh, and hold on. There's one other thing about this whole platform. The Hootsuite method of creating content and just sort of spamming it into the ether is that this world has changed. I mean, it is a pay to play world. If you could create an incredible following just on Twitter, sure, but you're still going to have to pay to boost or pay to target those tweets or pay to sponsor if you're a new account. There's just the strategy of these platforms when they were first building them is create a really compelling, really sticky piece of software that lets people connect and engage. And then once they got to a certain size, they turned down the knob of distribution of that content and turned up a little price point for if you want to continue that level of engagement, you got to
Yeah.
now because that's how they're going to pay their servers and bills and all the stuff that they have to do with,
Yeah.
right? Just it is what it is, I guess, for
Yeah.
that type
Every
of
quarter
platform.
needs to show that they're growing more than before, but you
Yeah,
reach a saturation point.
yeah, yeah. So, yeah. But I just
Okay.
found for podcast and for video, it's just gotta be on YouTube
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
consider TikTok. But TikTok's really its own animal. It's a strange way of doing videos.
I don't
If
want to
you
dance in pointed boxes. Am I gonna have to dance in pointed boxes?
no, no, no.
Okay.
But man, I follow a bunch of on TikTok. I follow a bunch of parenting coaches.
Oh, really?
They're great. They're great. There's so many great ideas. The only issue there though, sometimes I get too many of them, and I'm like, oh yeah, what do I do with all this now that I just sort of casually scrolled through? But I mean, you just any problem you have in the world, you can probably find a video on it somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I'm the same with podcasts. I often will. I know I still consume podcasts like you said you do. So parenting ones. Actually, I'm gonna have someone on next quarter, and this is a plug for my own show for my listeners. We haven't figured out a date yet, but on high achieving parents, mistakes that high achieving parents make, because as physicians we're
High
high
achievers.
achievers, economically and status, whatever. So how do we make sure that we're not screwing up our kids? And because I listened to a parenting podcast
Mm.
like you, and that I listened to one that was like that, and so I'm like, wait a second, my audience needs to hear this, and I need to have my questions answered. How do I avoid screwing up my kids? So
Well, that
yeah,
sounds like a great episode. I can't wait to listen to that one. I'm not so sure how high achieving I am compared to you,
hey,
Dr. Block, but
Ernesto,
30
you
patients is
are
a
you
lot.
are no,
A lot of people.
you're doing yes. It doesn't mean I'm practicing good medicine. Seeing a lot of patients is not the equivalent of practicing good medicine. The two,
Yeah.
there's the Venn diagram of that. I'm not sure how much overlap is really there. But no,
Well, I
Ernesto,
should.
you're amazing, and I appreciate all of your help and insight. So please don't
Oh,
sell yourself short here.
you're welcome. I've also found that the podcast long form is beautiful there, and it does translate into YouTube. the long form conversational, what we're having, not the television show with like, oh, and we can only talk for about 5 minutes and then we got to throw it to commercials, right?
Yeah.
It's like we can meander in these conversations, and it's just been a way of, I don't know, it's just been a way of learning that we all are experiencing through this stuff, right? And so I believe in this medium in and of itself. It's got its dark sides for sure. But where else can you get a show like this?
Yeah.
I mean,
And parenting and learning how to build a deck, all right next to each other,
right, right,
right? Back to, you got a long drive, you're going to learn how to parent. You know what? Learn how to parent while building your deck,
right,
like have
right,
your kids help you
right.
build it,
That'd be
and
great.
I'm
That would
sure
be
there's a
great.
podcast that mixes those things together. That's the niche, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Uh,
Go ahead.
So I want to talk a little bit, and I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I do want to talk a little bit about what we should be telling physicians about promoting their using social media, like using YouTube. You said these applications are not really what they used to be. So if there's a physician who's trying to use social media either to promote their side gig or their main gig, is your takeaway, directing YouTube ads? Is that the takeaway, or what should we be telling our physician audience?
I mean, the fundamental there has to always be like, you got to get really specific of I don't like the word target. I use it because that's the vernacular in the marketing communications world they use. And I don't even really consider myself exactly a marketer. It's more of my background's more in the technology of the systems that marketers and communications people use, right? So, but at the fundamental level is, if you have a side gig or you're trying to promote the practice you have, you got to get really sharp about what is the typical archetypical story, what is the type of customer, the ideal one that you want. And then you got to speak to that person.
Like the
And
avatar, the avatar,
the
yeah.
avatar, if you want to call it that, right? I mean, just go to People Magazine and cut out some pictures or something, put them next to you, and then try to communicate in a way that resonates with them, right? I mean, the way physicians talk to physicians is going to be very technical, high-level stuff, but way you talk to a patient is a different way of communicating. You need to communicate in a way that the patient understands. It's the same thing when you're dealing with social media marketing, in my opinion. We need to get really sharp, and the more niche, the better it is, the more focused it is on that. It might grind you to continuously repeat the content you're generating towards that target audience, but that's the way that audience is that's how we're gonna connect with it. Right. And it doesn't matter, whatever the social media platform you're choosing, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or, house ads on Amazon. I mean, the marketing materials you're going after, think about that audience and then get help or work on it yourselves. Where are they? What shows are they watching if you're on YouTube? What of the plethora of Facebook options that you would have to check off to triangulate into the target audience that that audience exists there, right? And then generate a bunch of content that tests different things that grabs their attention. And one of the fundamentals, this came from a paid search friend of mine, who he's fantastic. He just focuses on creating ads that appear when you go to Google search. When you type in something on Google, he's an expert at that space. And his method or thinking is, you want to identify Dean Hua, Saatchi Studios. I should add that to your notes, but you want to identify a particular dogma in the target market, some kind of common expectation, common sense approach, whatever it is, dogma. Everyone just assumes that this is the way we do things. This is the way everybody understands things. And you, as the physician or the person marketing for a physician, needs to come up with marketing material that is slightly the antithesis to that. What is the counterpoint of view to that dogma? And so you got to choose your dogmas carefully, right? You got to figure out what it is. So if you think, I mean, let me try to come up with a random example, but like, let's just say you're a dentist, and the dogma is like dentists are going to cause pain, right? Like that's the dogma you're choosing. And you should be priding yourself on how dentistry should be painless, perfectly painless. And so that's kind of what you're going for. Like identify the dogma, create the headlines. Everyone's causing a lot of pain in your teeth. You shouldn't suffer. Come to us and create material. The reason for it, and this is going to be weird, but the reason is it's what catches people's eyes. It's what's going to go, huh? What? It's the headline or the titling on your YouTube video talking about that
Okay.
people will go, wait, that seems a little bit out of the ordinary. Let me
It's
pay attention to
incongruent.
that.
It's incongruent. It's not what you would expect it to be, and that can be a little mentally jarring. It's not
Yes,
what it's
yes.
unexpected. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, you got to deliver the goods, right? Otherwise, it's clickbait. Otherwise, you're just coming up with salacious headlines and for nothing, right? Which there is a bunch of content out there. If you spend a lot of time on YouTube Shorts, there's a lot of that. You don't want to do that to your practice. No. But
no, because like you said, you want to deliver the goods. Like, I mean, yes, but there is that element in medicine too. There are some people that, put themselves out there, especially if they're doing something like cosmetics, which, cash business, and they want to grab your attention, and they're going to do it by being the lowest common denominator. So yeah, that stuff is definitely out there, and physicians are culprits of that as well. But as you said, like if your product is your practice, like, yeah, you want to deliver the goods, but you got to grab your patient's attention, grab your referring physician's attention by giving them something they're not going to expect that helps you to stand out without,
jumping the
like
shark
doubling
here
down
on
on
something
profanity
crazy.
and
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You got to
There
keep your integrity.
it's a how do let me think this explanation out. It's a little like if everyone is always trying to be prim and proper, then you kind of got to do something a little different to get that. Now, in that process, you might turn off some folks that material's not for them. But if you're turning someone off, you're probably turning someone else on. Someone's like, wow, that's awesome. So it's got to be, at the end of the day, a little bit entertaining. And that's, I spent a lot of my past is working with like communication teams in really stuffy nonprofits all over Washington, D.C. And they take themselves very seriously because they want everyone to take them very seriously. And it's kind of a difficult, like, explaining to them that if you're too serious and too buttoned up, no one's going to watch. No one's going to go, huh? Because there's so much content to begin with that's already grabbing their attention.
Yeah.
So if you can take the courageous step of just doing a little bit differently, standing out just a little in some way, and the easiest way is to sort of pick that dogma and come up with that thing that's the antithesis to it as a headline and start
That's
from there.
actually been in a prior show with Tim Caulfield. He's actually a lawyer, but he does a lot of work with medical misinformation. And
Mm.
he says you got to be where your audience is. And so if you're competing with the misinformation that seems appealing, but it's so wrong, like you have to make yourself appealing in a certain way. And the example I love is when the CDC, when The Walking Dead was like the show to watch and zombies were everywhere, they had disaster preparation for, for floods and for fires and for disease and for the zombie apocalypse. And so they had, these are the recommendations.
Huh?
And because disaster preparedness is basically,
Wow.
water, food, shelter, clothing, like a go bag. It's all the same over and over. Disaster preparedness for the zombie apocalypse is everything else. So it got more eyeballs because they took that courageous step. They weren't so buttoned up. So I guess that's the message to the physician audience as well, which is like, get out of your comfort zone. Don't double down on profanity, right? Because
No.
you got to keep your integrity, but get a little outside your comfort zone. Be entertaining, be engaging, be what people wouldn't necessarily expect from your specific niche, and that's how to get more eyeballs on you.
Yep. And that's how you draw attention towards the goal. So sort of like if you want your message to be delivered and to find that audience, then you gotta meet them where they are. And that's where we all are. We're all scrolling through TikTok, right? We're
So
all looking at YouTube. I mean, that's just the way it is.
so
Yeah,
one last question. One last
sure.
question. And that is, so my wife and I, we're always like, oh, we got to get to bed early tonight because my kids still wake up in the middle of the night, right? I got to find a
Mm.
podcast for how to get like a 3 and a 5-year-old to sleep through the night. Um, Still not happening. So we're like, oh, we got to get to bed. So we go to bed early and then we sit on our phones next to each other scrolling, right? So if we ever were to catch you scrolling, which app? Which is the app that Ernesto's on?
Oh my God. Well, I mean, I already mentioned TikTok because I'm getting
Yeah.
parenting advice and 30-second sound bites. But well, actually, it's funny. It's going to be split between two apps. One is Reddit, because I've always found the comments on Reddit are more, for some reason, interesting to me than any comments on any other platform that I've ever read. Like, I go to the Washington Post, I read an article, I click the comment section, and it's like a quick jump away because this is it's not good. Reddit, on the other, for some reason, it's just different. It's just
Hmm.
there's just more. It's more thoughtful, I think, most of the time. There's still bad actors there too. But
Yeah.
anyway, but the latest app that you'd probably be seeing messing with, that I'd be messing with right now, is something called, if you go to OpenAI, there's an app. It's not an app. Well, it is. It's called Dall-E, D-A, like Dolly, DALL-E. OpenAI. You can get an account for free and try it. It's amazing. It's an AI image generator.
Okay.
It'll create images for you based on just random, that just describe the image you want to see, click generate, and it will create an image that's never before been seen. And it's amazing. It's
And are you going to
amazing.
turn it into an NFT and then
You
is that
could,
how that
or
works?
your thumbnail or a logo. It still needs some work, but I've been um Scott Mutter is one of my favorite artists, and I've just been like, hey, make a like teddy bear. There's like a teddy bear driving a car in the middle of New York City in the style of Scott Mutter, and it will just generate several versions, like 4 or 5 of them, and boom. And it's both fascinating and slightly terrifying
Terrifying.
that
Yeah.
computers can create this stuff. I'm like, where are we headed? So that's where I'm at right now. That's where
Wow.
I'm messing with. Yeah.
I'm thinking what would
Right
happen if
now.
I gave that to my boys, and I think it would all just end in fart jokes.
Oh,
Like,
probably, yeah. Probably. Probably. Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
so if my audience wants to look you up, they want to hire you, they want to listen to your podcast, they want to, they want to follow you on social media. Where do we find you?
Yeah, if you have any interest in like, renewable energy and technology companies doing stuff, AI, that's through the podcast is Through the Noise podcast, but my company is just Through the Noise Consulting. You can just type that in Google and we'll be the top link, and you can reach out with any questions. Happy to
And
talk to
Charlene will put it
anybody.
all up in the show notes, and hopefully she knows your social media
Yes.
handles, so we'll
Thank you,
be linking to
Charlene.
you in all the social media apps.
Yeah. Yeah. This was great,
This
Brad.
was great. This was a lot of fun. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for your time.
Yeah, totally. Thank you. And thank you guys for watching. Really appreciate the support on the Physician's Guide to Doctoring. I mean, you're the boss. I'm just trying to help you with the show, getting the promotion, getting the thing out there. And so any of you guys clicking and liking, if it's relevant to you, that's super appreciative. Thank you.
And then let me know if you guys have guests, if you know experts like Ernesto that you want to have on the show to discuss what you want to hear. Let me know. We'll get them on.
That was Dr. Bradley Block at the Physician's Guide to Doctoring. He can be found at physiciansguidetodoctoring.com or wherever you get your podcasts. If you have a question for a previous guest or have an idea for a future episode, send a comment on the webpage. Also, please be sure to leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform. We'll see you next time on the Physician's Guide to Doctoring.